Assalamu alaikum, parents and students. Welcome to another week of distance learning. Please make sure when you log into your MS Teams, you select your subject. Today our subject is science, so we'll click on science and then we'll click on the correct week. Since we are week 5, I'll click on week 5 to check out my resources. Parents, please make sure you check the attached online learning lesson plan. Now, in the online learning lesson plan, as usual, you'll find the lesson overview, the success criteria, as well as the learning steps and assignments, and our resources. For this week's science, we have some PDFs for you, and they are the book pages as well as the answer key, and the PowerPoint is also attached. After students finish their book pages, they can check the answer key to self-assess. We also have our summary for this part of the lesson. So let's begin our presentation for today. We've been talking a little bit about water and weather, and our lesson today is on seasonal weather changes. Now, we have our learning intention, and at the end of the lesson, learners will describe the weather conditions for each season. Okay, and so our two vocabulary words are temperature and predict. Okay, so temperature and predict. And here are your links to the online lesson tutorials. Make sure you watch these and then you can come back and continue with me. So the words weather and climate. What is the difference between weather and climate? Let's look at weather first. Weather, as you already know from our past couple of weeks, is the condition of the atmosphere, such as the temperature and the presence of rain and clouds. Weather changes daily. All right, so every day I can look outside my window and I'll say, okay, what is the weather today? Climate is the average weather conditions of a location over a long period of time. All right, so it's my weather conditions for a long period of time, not just one day. All right, weather is daily. Climate is my weather for a long period of time. So the United Kingdom has a temperate climate, and what does that mean? That means warm summers, mild winters, and some rainfall all year. A meteorologist is someone who studies the weather. So if you want to be someone who studies the weather when you grow up, you'll say, I want to be a meteorologist. All right, so that's weather, climate, meteorologist. All right, so the weather forecast is a prediction of what the weather will be like in the next few hours, days, weeks, or even months. That's the weather forecast, okay? Weather forecast, a prediction of what the weather will be like in the next few hours, days, weeks, or even months. All right, and a prediction is what we think will happen. So a prediction of the weather is what we think the weather will be like, because sometimes we can't be 100% correct, but we can predict a pattern for the weather that is coming. Okay, and that's weather forecasting. Weather forecasting is predicting or guessing what the weather will be like. And we can get the weather forecast using information from weather instruments and weather satellites to create the weather forecast. Okay, so measuring weather, how do we do that? Temperature is a measure of how hot or cold something is. The tool we use to measure temperature is a thermometer. Air temperature is measured in degrees Celsius or in degrees Fahrenheit. Predicting weather. Predicting weather means we're trying to be ready for the weather that's coming. So, one part of predicting weather, or why we predict weather, is to stay safe and comfortable, right? We wear clothing that is right for the weather. We also predict weather to help us. Scientists try to predict the weather to help us out. When we know what kind of weather is coming, we can make plans to dress right and we can choose the right kinds of activities. So that's why we predict the weather, to be ready for the weather, to stay safe and comfortable. Scientists are trying to help us, and so that we can make plans to dress right and choose the right kinds of activities. What are weather graphs? Weather graphs are what weather scientists use, and weather scientists have to communicate their findings the best way possible, and the best way to do that is to use graphs. Okay, graphs can show the weather over a few days or even longer. So over here we have a weather graph, and on this weather graph you can see a temperature line. All right, so this is a line graph to show the temperature. The rainfall is shown through a bar graph, and over here we have our numbers for how many millimeters we have of rainfall. Down here we have the months of the year, and over here this side is for the temperature for these numbers for this line. Okay, so a weather graph tells us a bunch of information like temperature and rainfall. And weather scientists, they use these graphs, right, to show us what they found. At the end of the lesson, make sure you do your exit ticket and use the learning pit to reflect on your learning. Ask yourself, what did I learn today? Then how did you find it? And then you can also give your feedback. All right, and at the end of this lesson, as always, thank you very much and have a good rest of the day.